Penny Chen stared at the pregnancy test in disbelief, the two pink lines blurring through her tears. At 24, she had just landed her dream entry-level position at a prestigious marketing firm in Philadelphia. She and Trevor had been dating for nearly 2 years, and though they hadn't discussed children, they had moved in together 6 months ago. Surely he would understand. They could make this work. The apartment was quiet when Trevor returned from his shift at the hospital where he worked as a resident. Penny had prepared his favorite pasta dish, hoping good food might soften the blow. Her hands trembled as she served the food. "You seem nervous," Trevor noted, his brow furrowing. "Did something happen at work?" Penny took a deep breath. "To tell you something important?" She fidgeted with her napkin. "I'm pregnant." The clatter of Trevor's fork against his plate echoed in the sudden silence. His expression shifted from surprise to something darker. Calculation, perhaps, or fear? How did this happen? "We were careful," he said, pushing his plate away. "Not careful enough, apparently," Penny replied, her voice small. "But I think we can handle this." "I've been looking into our options," Trevor interrupted, standing up abruptly. "Penny, I'm in the middle of my residency. I have 3 more years of 80-hour weeks ahead of me. You just started. Your career? There's only one option that makes sense." Penny felt her chest tighten. "You want me to terminate? It's the logical choice." "We're not ready for a child." "I don't know if I can do that," she whispered. What followed was a week of tense conversations and cold silences. Trevor retreated further into his work, coming home later each night. Penny called her parents in Seattle, but their disappointment was palpable, even across the country. Mother suggested adoption. Her father remained silent on the call. Neither. Offered to help when Penny finally decided to keep the baby. Trevor's response was swift and devastating. "I can't do this," he said, packing a suitcase while Penny watched from the doorway. "I didn't sign up for fatherhood. Not now." "So you're just leaving?" Penny asked, tears streaming down her face. "What about us? What about everything we've planned?" "Well, plans change," Trevor replied coldly. "I'll send money for the first few months, but I can't promise anything beyond that. A career has to come first." Within an hour, he was gone, leaving Penny alone in an apartment she couldn't afford on her modest starting salary. Within a week, she received a text message that he had accepted a residency position across the country in California. He asked her not to contact him again. The marketing firm was initially supportive when Penny disclosed her pregnancy, but she could sense her projects being reassigned. By her second trimester, her supervisor called her into the office. "We're downsizing the design department," he explained, not meeting her eyes. "We'll provide a generous severance package, but today will be your last day." As she packed her desk, her colleague Heather slipped her a business card. "My sister runs a small printing shop downtown. She might need someone with your skills. It's not glamorous, but it's something." That night, Penny sat on the floor of her soon-to-be-former apartment, surrounded by half-packed boxes. Her hand rested on her growing belly, feeling the first flutter of movement from the life within. "It's just you and me now, little one," she whispered. "I don't know how we'll manage, but I promise I won't abandon you like everyone else has." Tomorrow, she would call Heather's sister. Tomorrow, she would begin the search for a cheaper apartment. Tomorrow, she would start figuring out how to rebuild her life from scratch. But tonight, she allowed herself to grieve for the dreams that had slipped through her fingers. 3 months after Oliver's birth. Penny hunched over her laptop at the cramped kitchen table of her studio apartment, squinting at a logo design. While her son finally slept in his second-hand crib, the printing shop job barely covered rent and utilities. But Janet, Heather's sister, had been kind enough to let her work flexible hours and bring Oliver when childcare fell through, which was often. The apartment was in a rundown building, in a neighborhood she would have avoided in her previous life. But the landlord didn't ask too many questions, and had even fixed the leaking bathroom faucet without much complaint. Small mercies, Penny reminded herself. As she saved her work and rubbed her burning eyes, Trevor's promised financial support had dried up after 2 checks. His final message had been brief: "I've taken a position at UCSF, starting fresh. Good luck." No mention of Oliver, no questions about his son who had entered the world after 20 hours of labor. with only a nurse holding Penny's hand. One day at a time became Penny's mantra. Sleep deprivation clouded her days, blurring the boundaries between night and day. She'd forgotten what it felt like to sleep more than 3 consecutive hours. Between Oliver's colic and her night shifts, designing business cards and wedding invitations as a freelancer, exhaustion had become her constant companion. "You're going to kill yourself working like this?" Janet commented one afternoon as Penny dozed off while feeding Oliver his bottle. "When's the last time you had a full night's sleep?" Penny blinked rapidly, straightening in her chair. "I'm fine. Just need more coffee." Janet frowned. "Coffee isn't going to solve this." "You need help, Penny? Who's going to help me?" Penny snapped, immediately regretting her tone. "Sorry, I'm just tired." Janet hesitated, then reached for her phone. "My neighbor runs a community center with a sliding-scale daycare program. Let me make a call." The Sunshine Community Center became Penny's salvation. For a nominal fee she could barely afford, Oliver had a safe place to stay 3 mornings a week, while Penny took on more freelance work. The center's director, Mrs. Faulkner, a stern woman with kind eyes, took a special interest in Penny's situation. "You've got talent," Mrs. Faulkner observed one day, examining a flyer Penny had designed for the center's fundraiser, "but you need proper training to compete in today's market." "I had 6 months at a marketing firm before." Penny gestured vaguely toward Oliver, playing nearby. "Before life happened," Mrs. Faulkner finished. "There's a night program at the Community College, digital media and design. Scholarships available for single parents." Penny laughed humorlessly. "When would I study?" "Between working and Oliver, we have an after-hours program for parents and night school," Mrs. Faulkner interrupted. "We could extend Oliver's care 2 evenings a week." The idea seemed impossible, yet Penny found herself filling out applications that night after Oliver fell asleep. When the acceptance letter arrived with a partial scholarship, she cried for the first time since Oliver's birth, not from despair, but from a flicker of hope. Juggling school, work, and motherhood nearly broke her. There were nights she fell asleep at her textbooks, mornings she forgot to eat breakfast, days when showering felt like an unattainable luxury. Her refrigerator bore a calendar covered in color-coded reminders, pediatrician appointments, assignment deadlines, bill due dates, each a ticking time bomb of responsibility. Winter arrived with brutal cold and astronomical heating bills. Penny bundled Oliver in layers and wore her coat indoors to save on heat. When the pipes froze, she took Oliver to a local diner where the waitress, Dottie, a grandmother of 5, slipped her extra toast and let her linger over a single cup of coffee for hours. "You remind me of my daughter," Dottie confided one slow afternoon. "She raised my grandson alone while putting herself through nursing school." "Toughest woman I know? Did she make it?" Penny asked, bouncing Oliver on her knee. "Chief nursing officer at Mercy Hospital now," Dottie said proudly. "Took her 8 years, but she did it." 8 years seemed an eternity to Penny, who could barely imagine surviving another week. But something about Dottie's matter, afford of confidence, stayed with her. When Oliver came down with a severe ear infection that winter, Penny missed 3 days of work and an important exam. Her professor offered a makeup test, but Janet couldn't extend the same courtesy for missed shifts. "I need reliable help, Penny," Janet said gently. "I've carried you as long as I can." That night, with Oliver finally sleeping peacefully after rounds of antibiotics, Penny sat on her threadbare couch and allowed herself 5 minutes of despair. Then she opened her laptop and began applying for remote design positions, anything that would let her work from home when Oliver was sick by spring. She had cobbled together 3 regular clients who needed weekly social media graphics. Pay was meager, but the flexibility was priceless. She set up a portfolio website during Oliver's naps, using skills from her night classes to create a professional presence she didn't entirely feel. On Oliver's first birthday, Penny on a tiny cupcake from the bakery down the street, she placed it in front of her son, who giggled and smashed it with delighted hands. As she watched him, his face smeared with frosting and eyes bright with simple joy, Penny felt a surge of fierce determination. "We're going to be okay," she promised him, snapping a photo with her cracked phone screen. Somehow, we're going to make it. Later that night, after uploading the birthday photo to her private social media account, she received an unexpected message from an old college acquaintance. Love following your design work. Would you be interested in creating some graphics for my startup? Paid, of course. Penny stared at the message for a long moment, then glanced at Oliver, sleeping peacefully in his crib. Perhaps the climb wouldn't always be this steep. Perhaps there was level ground ahead. Asterisk the message from Penny's college acquaintance, Natalie. Wong turned out to be the first domino in a sequence of small victories. Natalie's health tech startup needed an entire branding package on a modest budget perfect for Penny, who was hungry for both portfolio pieces and income. The project took 6 weeks of late nights after Oliver fell asleep, but the result earned her not only a satisfied client, but 3 referrals. Your work has this unique balance, Natalie told her over coffee, their first in-person meeting since college. Oliver sat in his stroller, contentedly chewing on a teething toy. It's professional, but has heart. Most designers do one or the other. Penny smiled tiredly. Probably because I do most of it between midnight and 4 a.m. Everything looks more emotional at that hour. Natalie studied her thoughtfully. You know, you should leverage your story. Female founders are always looking to support other women, especially single mothers building businesses. I don't have a business, Penny protested. I just freelance to make ends meet. Not yet, Natalie corrected, sliding a business card across the table. But you should talk to Richard Okafor. He runs a business incubator for underrepresented entrepreneurs. Tell him I sent you. The card sat on Penny's refrigerator for 3 weeks before she gathered the courage to call. Richard, a soft-spoken man with a Nigerian accent and penetrating intelligence, agreed to meet her at his office downtown. Mrs. Faulkner offered to watch Oliver, sending Penny off with an encouraging stand. Tall. You've earned this opportunity, Richards. Office was minimalist but warm, with plants in every corner and awards lining one wall. He listened intently as Penny nervously outlined her freelance work, occasional design classes, and vision for expanding her services. What's holding you back? He asked when she finished. The question caught her off guard. Time, money, childcare, take your pick. Richard nodded thoughtfully. Valid obstacles, but not insurmountable. He opened his laptop and turned it toward her. Our incubator program provides funding, mentorship, and co-working space with childcare on-site. We take a small equity stake, but only if you succeed. Penny stared at the application page on the screen. Why would you take a chance on me? A part-time freelancer with no formal business background? 'Cause talent deserves opportunity, Richard said simply. And because I was raised by a single mother who never got hers. 2 months later, Penny found herself in a bright co-working space with 10 other entrepreneurs. Oliver spent his mornings in the attached childcare room, often visible through a large window as Penny worked. Her business, Phoenix Design Studio, had a small starting budget, a growing client list, and Richard's guidance. The learning curve was steep. Penny stumbled through business plans, pricing strategies, and client contracts. She made mistakes that cost her sleep and money. But the community of founders supported each other, trading services and advice. A law student helped with her incorporation paperwork in exchange for logo design. A tech entrepreneur built her a proper portfolio website while Penny created his marketing materials. Oliver turned then 2.5. He grew into a curious, energetic toddler who charmed everyone at the incubator. Penny moved them too. A 1-bedroom apartment in a safer neighborhood where Oliver had a small playground nearby. She still worked impossible hours, but now with purpose and direction. You need to hire help, Richard advised during their quarterly review. You're turning down projects because you're at capacity. I can't afford an employee, Penny countered. Then find a hungry design student as an intern. Let's train them in your style and free yourself for higher level work. Following his advice, Penny partnered with her old community college, offering a paid internship to a promising student named Leela. Teaching someone else forced Penny to articulate her process and refine her techniques. Layla brought fresh perspectives and digital skills that complemented Penny's strengths. 6 months into the incubator program, Natali's startup was acquired by a larger health tech company. The publicity brought attention to Penny's work, and a prominent women's business magazine requested an interview about female designers supporting female founders. "They want to photograph you with Oliver," Richard noted, showing her the email. "Are you comfortable with that?" Penny hesitated. Personal story had always remained separate from her professional identity. "Will it make me look unprofessional?" "It will make you authentic," Richard countered. "Besides, your ability to build this business while raising Oliver alone is remarkable. Why hide your greatest achievement?" The article, titled "Rising from Ashes: How One Designer Built a Business While Raising a Child Alone," featured a photo of Penny working at her desk with Oliver playing nearby. It detailed her journey from abandoned, expectant mother to business owner, emphasizing her resilience rather than victimhood. The response was overwhelming. Penny's inbox filled with messages from other single parents, aspiring entrepreneurs, and potential clients. A women's business alliance invited her to speak at their conference.
Wow.
A venture capital firm specializing in female-founded companies requested a meeting. "This is getting bigger than I can handle," Penny admitted to Richard. After turning down her third project that week due to capacity constraints, "That's a good problem," Richard replied. "Now we scale. Leela is ready for full-time work, and you need at least 2 more designers. I know just the space that would work for a proper studio." The transition from freelancer to employer terrified Penny. The overhead costs of a dedicated studio space and payroll seemed insurmountable. But Richard helped her secure a small business loan, leveraging her growing client list and press coverage as proof of concept. Phoenix Design Studio moved into a converted industrial space with high ceilings, natural light, and a small corner. Outfitted with children's furniture for the days Oliver needed to come to work, Penny hired Leela full-time and brought on a senior designer with agency experience to handle larger clients. On the night after signing the lease, Penny sat alone in the empty studio space after everyone had gone home. Oliver had fallen asleep. On the small couch in her office, clutching his favorite dinosaur toy, she watched his peaceful breathing, remembering the desperate nights in their first tiny apartment. The uncertainty that had been her constant companion. "We're planting roots," she whispered to her sleeping son. "From now on, we grow." The seeds had been planted, though Penny couldn't yet see it. They were already beginning to flourish in ways she'd never imagined possible. 5 years passed in, a blur of growth, challenges, and milestones. Phoenix Design Studio expanded from a team of 3 to 15 employees occupying the entire floor of their building. What began as a boutique design agency had evolved into a full-service creative firm with departments handling branding, web development, and digital marketing campaigns. Penny, now 34, had grown alongside her business, transforming from an uncertain entrepreneur into a confident CEO who regularly spoke at industry conferences. Oliver, now 8, had started 3rd grade at a progressive private school that emphasized creativity and emotional intelligence values. Penny prioritized after witnessing Oliver's sensitivity and artistic talent. The tuition stretched her personal budget, but watching her son thrive made every sacrifice worthwhile. "Mom, can Jackson come over to see my new robot kit this weekend?" Oliver asked one Thursday evening as Penny reviewed portfolios for a potential new hire. Their apartment, while still modest, had been upgraded to a comfortable 3-bedroom in a neighborhood with good schools and parks. "Of course, honey. I'll text his mom," Penny replied, smiling at how normal their life had become. Playdates, school projects, weekend routines, the stability she'd fought so hard to establish now felt almost ordinary. Later that night, after Oliver was asleep, Penny's phone rang with Richard's name on the display. "Have you seen the email?" he asked without preamble when she answered. "What email?" "Magnify Media is looking to acquire independent creative agencies. They specifically mentioned Phoenix as a target. Check your inbox." Penny found the message and skimmed it with growing disbelief. Magnify Media, a global marketing conglomerate, offering a substantial sum to purchase Phoenix Design Studio, with provisions for Penny to stay on as creative director for at least 3 years. This is a lot of zeros, she breathed into the phone. Life-changing money, Richard confirmed. But it's not just about the payout. Think about the resources and reach you'd have under their umbrella, and the loss of control. Penny countered. We'd be a small cog in their machine. True, but your team would have security, benefits, and growth opportunities that are hard to provide as an independent. The decision consumed Penny for weeks. She consulted lawyers, financial advisors, and fellow entrepreneurs. She made pro-con lists, spreadsheets of projections, and even a vision board trying to clarify her path forward. Ultimately, it was a conversation with Oliver that crystallized her decision. "What's worrying you, Mom?" he asked one evening, noticing her distraction during their dinner. Penny considered how to explain complex business negotiations to an 8-year-old. "I have to make a big decision about the company. Sometimes it's hard to know what's right." Oliver nodded seriously. "Mrs. Henderson says when decisions are hard, you should think about your values." "My values?" "Like what matters most to you," he explained with a child's straightforward wisdom. "She says if you choose with your values, you don't regret it, even if it's hard." The next morning, Penny called a company-wide meeting. Standing before her team, many of whom had been with her for years, some parents themselves who appreciated the family-friendly policies she'd instituted, she announced her decision. "We're staying independent," she declared. "But we're going to use Magnify's interest as leverage to secure better growth funding on our terms. Phoenix isn't just about profit, it's about creating a workplace where talent and life balance coexist." Relief on her employees' faces confirmed she'd made the right choice. That afternoon, she countered Magnify's offer with a proposal for a strategic partnership instead of an acquisition, preserving Phoenix's autonomy while gaining access to Magnify's global client base. To her surprise, Magnify agreed, impressed by her conviction and vision. The resulting partnership infused Phoenix with capital for expansion while maintaining its unique culture. Within months, they opened a second office in Chicago, headed by Lila, who had grown from intern to an invaluable creative partner. As Phoenix flourished, Oliver entered his tween years with all the complexity that entailed. 10, he began asking questions about his father, questions Penny had anticipated but still found difficult to answer. "Did he ever want to meet me?" Oliver asked one night while they walked their recently adopted rescue dog, Beacon. Penny chose her words carefully. "He wasn't ready to be a father when I was pregnant with you. Some people aren't prepared for that responsibility. You know where he is now?" "Last I heard, he was a doctor in California," Penny answered truthfully. "But that was many years ago." Oliver was quiet for several steps. "You think he ever thinks about me?" The question pierced Penny's heart. "I don't know, sweetheart, but his choices don't reflect on your worth. You are extraordinary, and anyone who doesn't see that is missing something incredible." As Oliver processed these truths, Penny faced challenges of her own. Success brought visibility, and visibility invited scrutiny. A profile in a major business magazine labeled her the Phoenix Queen, rising from personal disaster to design dynasty, focusing heavily on her single motherhood rather than her business acumen. "They're missing the point," fumed Dina, Phoenix's PR director. "Your design, innovation, and business model are the real story, not your marital status." Penny shrugged. "If my story helps other women see what's possible, I can live with a reductive headline." Still, she insisted, future press focus on Phoenix's work and company culture. She began declining interviews that seemed interested only in her personal narrative, instead highlighting the accomplishments of her team and their collaborative approach. By the time Oliver turned 12, Phoenix had grown to 35 employees across 2 offices, the client roster including Fortune 500 companies and cutting-edge startups. Penny had finally achieved financial security that once seemed impossible. She'd purchased a comfortable townhouse, established college funds for Oliver, and even helped Mrs. Faulkner renovate the community center that had been her lifeline. Years ago, the most unexpected development came when Penny received an invitation to deliver the commencement address at her alma mater's design school. Standing at the podium before graduating students, many facing uncertain futures, she shared the lessons of her journey without sugarcoating the struggles. Success isn't a straight line, she told them. It's built in the moments you choose to. Keep going when everything tells you to quit. It's forged in the fires of necessity and refined by purpose beyond profit. As she concluded her speech to enthusiastic applause, she spotted Oliver in the audience, beaming with pride. At 12, he was beginning to resemble the man who had walked away before his birth-same jawline. Same expressive eyebrows, but his character had been shaped entirely by the woman who had refused to abandon her dreams or her child. That night, as they celebrated with ice cream, Oliver presented her with a handmade card. Inside, he'd written simply, "You're my hero. Not because you're perfect, but because you never gave up." Penny tucked the card into her wallet, a tangible reminder of what truly mattered amidst the empire she'd built. About proving Trevor wrong, it had been about proving to herself, to Oliver, that determination could transform devastation into destiny. Asterisk. The invitation arrived on embossed cardstock with gold lettering. Philadelphia Medical Association honors distinguished alumni. Penny might have discarded it as misdirected mail if not for the personal note scrawled at the bottom, "Pennier. Design work for our healthcare clients has been noticed. We'd love you to attend as our guest speaker on innovation in medical communications. Dr. Evelyn Warner, board chair." At 40, Penny had learned to trust her instincts, something about returning to Philadelphia where everything had fallen. Apart 15 years ago felt like closing a circle. Phoenix Design Studio now had offices in 3 cities, a staff of 62, and a reputation for transforming how healthcare and tech companies communicated with their audiences. "Are you sure about this?" asked Dina over lunch. "Philadelphia doesn't exactly hold happy memories for you." Penny twirled pasta around her fork thoughtfully. "Maybe that's exactly why I should go. I'm not the same person who left there barely holding it together with a newborn." "Will you take Oliver?" Dina asked. Penny hesitated. Oliver had just turned 15, lanky and thoughtful, navigating high school with the quiet confidence of a teenager who had always been treated as worthy of respect. His questions about Trevor had tapered off over the years, replaced by deeper interests in photography and environmental science. "I'll ask him if he wants to come," Penny decided. It should be his choice. That evening, she broached the subject as they prepared dinner together. Ritual they maintained despite their busy schedules. Oliver was chopping vegetables with the careful precision he applied to everything from his photography to his science experiments. "I've been invited to speak in Philadelphia next month," Penny mentioned casually. "I thought you might want to. Come along, maybe tour some colleges while we're on the East Coast." Oliver looked up from the cutting board. "Philadelphia. Isn't that where I lived with your father?" "Yes," Penny confirmed. "Also, where I started my career before you were born." Oliver was quiet for a moment. Knife paused mid-chop. "I do. You think he still lives there?" The question hung between them. Penny had been honest with Oliver about Trevor as he grew older, neither demonizing him nor excusing his abandonment. "I don't know," she answered truthfully. "Last I heard he was in California, but that was many years ago." Oliver nodded slowly, then resumed chopping. "I'd like to go," he said finally. "Not to find him or anything, just to see where it all started." Weeks later, they checked into a boutique hotel in downtown Philadelphia. Penny had arranged for Oliver to tour the University of Pennsylvania and Temple University during her conference commitments. At 15, was already thinking about photography programs with environmental science minors. His way of combining his artistic talent with his passion for climate advocacy. The conference reception was held at the Philadelphia Art Museum, where medical professionals mingled with healthcare communications specialists. Penny, wearing a deep emerald dress that complemented her confidence, was discussing a recent campaign when Dr. Warner approached with a colleague in tow. "Penny Chen, I'd like you to meet Dr. Trevor Harmon, our newest board member and head of cardiology at University Hospital." The world narrowed to a tunnel as Penny found herself face-to-face with Trevor. 15 years had etched fine lines around his eyes and silvered his temples, but his expression of shock was unmistakable as recognition dawned. "Penny," he breathed, the color draining from his face. "Trevor," she acknowledged with remarkable composure. It's been a long time. Dr. Warner, oblivious to the history between them, smiled brightly. You two know each other? Wonderful. Trevor just returned to Philadelphia last year after a decade in California. We single, who acquainted Penny, offered diplomatically. If you'll excuse me, I should prepare for my presentation. She walked away with steady steps, despite the earthquake rumbling through her past. In the quiet of a side gallery, she pulled out her phone and texted Dina. Trevor is here. What are the odds? Dina's response was immediate. The universe has a twisted sense of humor. You okay? Surprisingly, yes, Penny replied, realizing it was true. Seeing Trevor had sparked neither anger nor pain, just a distant recognition of a chapter long closed. Her keynote presentation went flawlessly. She spoke eloquently about humanizing medical communications, making complex information accessible, and the importance of empathy in healthcare messaging. From the podium, she spotted Trevor in the audience, watching her with an expression she couldn't quite decipher. At the reception afterward, she was unsurprised when he approached, 2 glasses of champagne in hand. Your talk was brilliant, he offered, extending 1 glass, though I shouldn't be surprised. You were always the talented one. Penny accepted the champagne but maintained professional distance. Thank you. Congratulations on your position at University Hospital. An awkward silence stretched between them before Trevor spoke again. I've seen your company's work. Phoenix design is everywhere these days. You've built something remarkable. We have, Penny agreed, emphasizing the plural. My team is exceptional, Trevor nodded, then looked down at his glass. Penny, I know it's 15 years too late, but I owe you an apology. The way I left is ancient history, Penny finished for him. We both made the best decisions we could with who we were then. You're being generous, Trevor said, his voice tight. Ow. I was a coward. Penny studied him, seeing not the man who had devastated her, but someone diminished by his own choices. Fear makes us all do things we regret, but life goes on, does it? Trevor asked quietly. I finished my residency, became chief of cardiology, published in all the right journals, but something's always been missing. He hesitated.
Oh.
I've often wondered about ... the baby.
Oliver.
Penny supplied, her voice firm. His name is Oliver. He's 15 now. Brilliant, compassionate, and the best thing that ever happened to me. Trevor's expression crumpled slightly. I'd like to meet him someday, if that's possible. Before Penny could respond, she felt a presence at her elbow. Oliver stood there, taller than she remembered, his camera hanging around his neck. Mom? Sorry to interrupt, but Professor Ramirez wanted to show me the photography department before it closes. Penny felt a surge of conflicting emotions as she looked between her son and his father, standing face to face for the first time. Oliver, this is Dr. Harmon, an old ... acquaintance. Dr. Harmon, this is my son Oliver. Trevor stared at Oliver with undisguised wonder, clearly seeing himself in the boy's features. It's nice to meet you, Oliver, he managed, voice unsteady. Oliver, perceptive as always, glanced between them with dawning comprehension. Dr. Harmon, he acknowledged politely, then turned to Penny. I can go to the photography department another time if you're busy. No need, came a warm voice as a tall man, with kind eyes, approached. I've already spoken with Professor Ramirez. He's happy to meet us tomorrow instead. Penny smiled with genuine relief. Oliver, Dr. Harmon, this is Gabriel Winters, my partner. Gabriel, a children's book illustrator Penny had met at a publishing conference 2 years ago, extended his hand. Trevor, nice to meet you. Trevor shook his hand mechanically, eyes still fixed on Oliver. Likewise. The moment stretched taut with unspoken history until Gabriel gently suggested, Oliver, why don't we check out that exhibit you wanted to see downstairs? Give your mom a chance to catch up with her friend. As they walked away, Trevor whispered, He looks like me. He has your features, Penny acknowledged. But his heart, his character, those are his own. Trevor nodded slowly, visibly processing. Are you happy, Penny? The question was so unexpected that Penny laughed softly, profoundly. Not every day, of course. Life is still life. Well, yes. I built a life that makes me proud. Without me, Trevor added. A statement rather than a question. Because of choices we both made, Penny corrected. Your absence shaped me as much as anyone's presence could have. Later that evening, in a quiet corner of the hotel restaurant, Penny, Gabriel, and Oliver discussed the encounter over dessert. You want to get to know him? Penny asked Oliver carefully. There's no right answer here. Whatever you decide is valid. Oliver considered the question with the thoughtfulness that characterized him. Maybe, not right away. But I'd like to know. About the medical side of my family history, at least. Gabriel squeezed Penny's hand supportively. Whatever you both decide, I'm here. Penny looked between them, her son, growing into a remarkable young man, and Gabriel, who had entered their lives with patience and understanding, never trying to replace what was missing, but adding his own unique presence. We've come full circle, she realized aloud, back to where it all began, but completely transformed. 2 days later, as their plane lifted off from Philadelphia, Oliver asked, Was it hard seeing him again after all this time? Penny considered the question. Not in the way I might have expected. 15 years ago, I was devastated by his rejection. Today, I realized something important. What's that? Oliver asked. That sometimes what feels like abandonment is actually redirection. He couldn't give me what I needed then, so I had to build it myself. What I built our life together? Phoenix. Finding Gabriel's better than anything I could have imagined that night when your father walked away? Oliver nodded, processing this with his usual thoughtfulness. Do you think he regrets it?